I moved down to New Orleans at the end of 1999, and I was going to do a 1-year stint here working on a national public radio show called American Roots. And but my deal with them was I could do newspaper reporting since I loved doing that I would do that part of the time. And then I liked doing reporting so much down here that I ended up staying and ended up being on the staff at Gambit, which is the alternative weekly here in town. So my beat was, I guess you call it people in poverty in New Orleans. And I covered that since '99 through the hurricane, and now I'm doing it again. I was 8.5 months pregnant as the storm was threatening to hit New Orleans. And I remember watching on the TV, actually, they were showing over and over again the same sort of nightmare scenario where the New Orleans bowl gets flooded. And I turned it off. I thought, I don't want to hear this anymore. And I walked to the grocery store to get popsicles. I was so pregnant and so hot. And as I walked through the French Quarter, I saw that there were lots and lots of people, car after car after car, was packing up to evacuate. And I thought, this is really serious because people in the French Quarter just don't evacuate. It's high ground. They pride themselves on not evacuating. And I thought, I'm in for something very big here. So we got to the hospital late on the 27th, and I was in pretty full labor by midnight that night. I had the baby at 4 a.m. on the 28th of August, about 24 hours before Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans. And now it seems so foolish. It seems, because the hurricane hit so hard and we were so unworried about it. We got through the storm. The generators didn't make it through the storm very well. And so our part of the hospital was hot, very, very hot and without lights, even by that evening. And that just got worse as the days went by. We ended up getting out on Wednesday morning when the hospital decided to evacuate. We ended up getting a ride with a nurse. Her name is Juliana Lacoste. I'll never forget her name. In fact, I ran into her at the grocery store when I first got back to New Orleans and was absolutely in tears seeing her. But she really saved us. She, at a time when hospital administrators were saying that they could take us to one of the shelters, she offered to give us a ride in her car. We drove to Baton Rouge. It was me, my boyfriend Mervyn Campbell, and the little Hector, who was at that point only 3 days old. We thought we'd have to sit in the airport for a few days, but the flight people saw this little baby and got us onto a flight almost immediately. And then by the time we got through Atlanta, which is the hub, they had called ahead and we got into first class for the second part. And I remember I was so thrilled to be sitting in somewhere comfortable, and my boyfriend Merv they were giving him champagne. And so we were celebrating on the plane, and by the time we got to Phoenix, it felt like we were safe at least. I was thrilled when I found out that the Center for Public Integrity was doing a Katrina book, because I had admired the in-depth coverage that they'd given other topics, and I thought that it would be perfect to try to do something investigative about what had happened around Katrina. I was especially interested in the social services delivery around Katrina, which is the chapter I ended up writing. I knew a lot of people who'd been through the storm, and so beyond just my instincts as a reporter, I was also interested in why there had been such gaps right after the storm, and that's what this book addresses. The question was, how come the national organizations had reacted so differently, and how come the results had been so different? And the Salvation Army national organization was in here within a few days after the storm. They had a kitchen out in La Place, which is about 20 miles from New Orleans, and they were sending in food trucks very quickly after the storm. The Red Cross never got in, and they didn't actually end up serving food to people in downtown New Orleans until after the mayor had issued the calls back at the end of September. the Red Cross was caught looking toward Washington, D.C. all the time. They were unable to take orders from local officials. They couldn't fit in volunteers. There were so many volunteers who wanted to be part of it, and they could not fit them into their plans. So I think that even if the hurricane happened next year, it would be exactly the same response. One of the things I found out just recently, actually, is that there were a couple of people who had come in after the storm just trying to hook up with their friends here. And in order to come in, the way that they safeguarded their vehicles was to raise a Red Cross flag, a fake one, onto their vehicles. They got through all the roadblocks. They got into town. No one bothered them. So it's sort of a funny lesson in, I think the Red Cross probably would have, the actual Red Cross would have done probably even better than these fake Red Cross vehicles that were coming in. It does feel really good to be back here in New Orleans. I think partly because other people have been through the same thing you've been through, and so you can relate to what everybody's thinking in a much different way. But also, it's just New Orleans is a town that loves babies. I have a little baby. And, you know, if I go somewhere with him, I have to leave another extra maybe half an hour because people are going to stop him on the sidewalk and check his legs and tell him he's fine and see how many teeth he has. And so for me, it's a perfect place to raise a baby, and it's a wonderful place to be as an adult. So I'm really, really happy to be back in New Orleans.